What's up, everybody? Paul here from the Hoops Crew, and today we're recording this early in the morning, fresh off the news that was broken by Caroline Wilson on Channel 7's new footy analysis show, basically their kind of spin-up version of Footy Classified, that Geelong is under the microscope a little bit. They're getting audited by the AFL around their finances. And of course, for a lot of us, that triggers some questions because over the course of the last few months, we've heard a range of different stories about Bailey Smith and Cotton On, about Chris Scott and Morris Finance. And there's even an old story potentially about Joel Selwood. And of course, for any neutral supporter, some of the more petty ones I've noticed across the internet in the 12 hours since this news is broken, they're all using this as an excuse to go, see, I told you so. They're a bunch of cheaters and we blah, 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 ranting and raving and wishing nothing but the best for the Cats. So what I'm here to do today is kind of break down, I guess, what this actually is, what we should expect from this audit, and kind of, I guess, pick through the process of actually, how it really works. Because I think there's a lot of people getting carried away because Geelong's simply being looked into here and not really understanding what an audit actually is. And it kind of shows really the level of intellect from some particular people. So we're going to get into that. And we're going to talk about this whole audit and what we should expect, what we should worry about, what we shouldn't worry about throughout the course of this video. But first, a word from our sponsor.
The Hoops Crew Media Network is proudly sponsored by Cyril Cook Florist. Visit them at shop 1211 Leather Street in Breakwater. Phone them on 035 222 2244 or visit their website at www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au and use the offer code GOCATS in the voucher field at checkout to get 20% off your next online purchase.
Thank you, Cyril Cook Florist, as always, for your ongoing support of the Hoops Crew. Now, let's get into the story at hand here a little bit. Obviously, the Fox Footy headline here is a pretty strategically extracted one here from a thing that Caroline Wilson put together on the Agenda Setters, which is the new Channel 7 Footy Classified kind of spin-off or knockoff, featuring 3/4 of the old Footy Classified panel, really. There's been rumours for years, and the AFL is auditing Geelong over third-party payments is kind of the headline here. And of course, that is a pretty on-the-nose headline here, and that's going to, I guess, cause a little bit of panic from the Geelong supporter base. And for those who don't support the Cats and have been quite green with envy over the course of the last 20 years, they're, of course, going to feel like there's a chance here that they're going to get a win on us. And I'm here to blow all of that up, really. So let's talk a little bit about what the article talks about and what Caroline Wilson kind of spoke about herself. So the AFL is auditing Geelong over third-party player payments, according to veteran journalist Caroline Wilson. Both the league and club reportedly confirmed there was an audit being undertaken, Wilson said on 7. An audit is an independent examination into financial reports to verify them and ensure that they're being kept properly. An audit isn't just that, but anyway, we'll get back to that in a second. I can tell you that the AFL is auditing third-party player payments at the Geelong Football Club, Wilson explained. This is not an investigation. Those in the know were at pains to tell me it is an audit, and there are audits going on with third-party payments around the competition. And there's a little bit of an extract of the clip here, which we won't play in this case, but this one's intriguing. It began last year. We spoke on another place about issues potentially with Bailey Smith, Cotton On deal. Of course, she's referring to Footy Classified there, but she won't name names because it's her old show. But since then, the Morris Finance story broke and the deal that they have with the club's coach, Chris Scott. That story came to light when Morris Finance wanted more out of their man and asked that he wears the club colours, and that caused some problems. Some of that money is now going into either the soft cap or outside the soft cap, the 20%, etc. There's also a story on in The Age last December which revealed a $100,000 loan contracted with a former club sponsor now being investigated by the police and former club captain Joel Selwood. The deal allegedly stood to earn Selwood $10,000. No one is saying that Joel Selwood did anything wrong or that the deal even took place, but this raised eyebrows at head office. Very sensitive the AFL were when I started asking questions about this last week, but there have been confirmations today, both from the club and the AFL, that an audit is currently going on. It's ongoing, and it's not only concerning those two stories, but other players as well. She added there have been rumours, unfair, about Geelong, stress that word, unfair, about Geelong for many years now. But I think that those two stories, the Morris Finance and the old story, the ancient story about Joel Selwood, sparked this investigation. Chris Scott also has a deal with Deakin University, And of course, that leads to a lot of questions about coaches and what they earn. I believe it's unfair that they aren't able to earn more. The AFL are at pains to say this is an audit. There won't be findings necessarily announced if nothing is found, but they are looking, and they are looking deep. Wilson said rival clubs have raised concerns about the Cats. The Melbourne Football Club raised concerns about who Clayton Oliver spoke to and what was involved in that potential deal last year, she said. The Bulldogs remain very, very angry about what went on with Bailey Smith and the club. GWS ditto for Jeremy Cameron. I'm not saying Geelong have necessarily done anything wrong, but there is no doubt rival clubs are concerned. So let's pull apart some of this. And let's start by talking about what an audit is, because I've seen a lot of misinformation, or just a misinformation, not in the right thing. People just not understanding what an audit is. So in this case, obviously, there's an audit that's being done into the financial reports. Audits are a fairly common thing when it comes to bookkeeping. In my industry of teaching, I got audited on my Year 12 curriculum a couple of years back, and it's a thing that every teacher of a Year 12 subject does, and I wouldn't say they're necessarily scheduled, but they are semi-common every few years to make sure that you are hitting certain standards. And in this case, there's an audit being done to make sure that Geelong is hitting a certain standard of expectation within the AFL system. And what this report doesn't kind of point out, unless I kind of breezed over it, is that it's competition wide. Like they're not. Yes, Geelong is one of those teams, and I'm sure that the stories popping up absolutely meant that we had to be looked into in this particular case. But the fact that an audit's going on, it's going on with multiple different clubs around the competition, and honestly, they should be doing this yearly to every other year anyway, just because there's so much money flying around in this business that you never know what is and isn't dirty, what isn't legit, what isn't legit but not intentionally done. It's just, people looking for borderline cases that maybe kind of stray a little bit off the mark. There's all sorts of reasons why you look into this. So I've got no problem with an audit happening. And of course, I think this is really being inflamed because there are a lot of people, as Caroline Wilson kind of flags here, that are unhappy with Geelong. You've got supporter bases who are sick to death of us being somewhere near the top. And I did a video during the preseason, early in the piece, explaining how Geelong can afford the players that they do. And that, I think, then when I scroll back down to the bottom of that piece, where we're talking about how Melbourne raised concerns over Clayton Oliver being involved with the Cats, that the Bulldogs remain angry with what went on with Bailey Smith and the club, and that GWS are also frustrated around Jeremy Cameron. Now, there's a few of those that I don't really quite understand. We gave away the kitchen sink for Jeremy Cameron. We traded 3 first-round picks. There's no problems there. Like, we paid a king's ransom for him. A lot of that came from a huge price that we drove for Tim Kelly. Like, more fool West Coast, really, for giving up as much as they did for Tim Kelly, which then allowed us to transact on Jeremy Cameron. I've got no problems there in the slightest. Bailey Smith, of course, there's a lot of fuss around Bailey Smith. They didn't want to lose Bailey Smith in the first place, but he wanted to go. That is what it is. And obviously the Clayton Oliver one didn't work out. Melbourne vetoed it. And they're well within their rights to. I'm trying to remember now whether Jeremy Cameron was out of contract. I think he was out of contract. But hell, even going back to Danger, like, we could have gotten him for free. We could have gotten him as a free agent, but we transacted because it's a fair and reasonable thing to do. I've got no concerns with what Geelong has done over the years. Now, of course, there are 3 stories here that are, look, I would agree, still concerning, and I think they're worth looking into if you're the AFL, in terms of, obviously, Bailey Smith and Cotton On. Now, I think that one is inflamed because it's Bailey Smith coming to Geelong. He obviously already had that deal in place well before he ever came on the Cats' radar. He's been the face of Cotton On for many years now, and he's probably made Cotton On a lot of money, and he's probably made a lot of money out of it, but well within his rights too. And I believe that deal's just kind of shifted. Like, I don't think anything about that deal has really changed since he's joined Geelong. But if you are the AFL, you would want to make sure that's the case. There's this Joel Selwood report, which there's still not a lot of information really out there about it. And I don't have the greatest level of understanding about what the accusations are in that particular case, but it's also quite old. It's pretty hard, I think, especially for 10 grand, to really account for that properly. And but if they see that the club's involved and there's something dodgy going on, then absolutely smack them on the wrist for it. There won't be any major consequences, though. And then our final one is, of course, Chris Scott and Morris Finance, which the AFL actually has already gone through. They've already gone through their investigation, and then there was nothing to report off the back of it, so we can kind of ignore that as well. People want to make something stick on the backs of Geelong, and I get it. Jealousy is an ugly thing. And when when you're feeling a bit scorned and you don't love the fact that we've been successful for so long, you're hoping that something sticks and wants to take you down. I'm seeing this sentiment change about the Cats over the last few years, where people are really tired of us, not even necessarily for trades and transactions, but for on-field success reasons. People are over us. And fine, I get it, whatever, sure. But we continue to remain relevant. We draft really well. We trade really well. We transact really well with other clubs, and we remain a really competitive team. Whilst, if you haven't checked out my other video where I spoke about the player payment side of it, the actual on the books salary cap player payment side of it, there are very, very obvious reasons to why we are able to do what we do, and you've just got to get your head out of your ass in order to be able to see those. So I don't have any real concerns here. Of course, there's a 10% of me that worries, because as soon as you're getting audited, and as I was when I got audited around my year 12 curriculum over a couple of years ago, absolutely you go, oh, what if? What if we've made a mistake? What if this? What if that? But this is a professional organization who's got accountants, bookkeepers is not the right word there, but like people who keep the books. I've got no doubt that this is being done and done properly. And they've been so successful for 20 years. Surely they've been looked into over the past. This is one of probably many audits that the club has gone through, that every other club has also gone through. And presumably, based on the outcomes or lack of outcomes, we've passed those every single time. Those are my thoughts on this Geelong audit process. Of course, this comes from the perspective of a Geelong supporter. And so in the same way that I say that there's non-Geelong supporters who are sick of us and the jealousy, there's probably also a hint of bias in the way that I'm bringing this to the table. But I trust the club. They've done the right thing for such a long time. And I don't see why this would be any different now. From the leadership that really got started with Frank Costa years and years ago, all the way through to now, this has been a ultra-professional club who's done things their way, legally though, and been incredibly successful for it. And I have no doubt that there's not some ugly side that's going to rear its head off the back of finances. But it'll be good to go through the report, and if there's any rough edges that need to be sanded down, I'm sure the club will sand them down. But we're not going to, as Caroline Wilson speaks about in the report, I don't think we're necessarily going to hear anything unless there is something egregious, like there is a massive, massive problem here. Then I don't think we're going to hear anything more about this. It'll be one of those things that people are just going to go, oh, look, the Geelong paid them off and blah, 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 corrupt AFL, corrupt Cats, wah, 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 and we'll go and win the flag in 2025 and stick it all up your asses. Those are my thoughts. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already done so, please make sure to hit the subscribe button. Check out all that we're doing on the Hoops Crew. There's lots of videos, lots of live videos, post-game live, the Paul James Show, the Chaps Chat Cats. There's so much awesome content on this YouTube channel. Subscribe and go and check it out. Toss this video a like to help us grow, help us reach more people. The algorithm is really important to us. We're on Patreon. Consider subscribing to the Patreon for the minimum cost of $5 a month. You get exclusive access to videos, early access videos, and extended content as well. You can find me on socials at Paul James Games. That's on Blue Sky, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can also find the Hoops Crew on those same social platforms as well. Until next time, remain Geelong strong. I look forward to a very positive outcome from this audit. Thanks a lot for watching. Remain Geelong strong, and I'll see you later.